Hearts of Fire from the Voice of the Martyrs brings you the true stories of courageous Christian women, heroines of faith who risked their lives to spread the gospel around the world. For your free book, call 888-725-6500. That's 888-725-6500. Or visit freeheartsoffire.com.
And so what is happening in the culture is what has always been happening, is that we have passions at war within us that are waging war against our souls. And so I think having that framework to know this isn't a random thing, nor is it something that you're also divorced from. You have passions too, gay or straight. How many people do we know that are yet and still married and still tempted to be with someone that they're not married to? That is a passion that God calls us to put to death.
Okay, help us understand something. We have this idea that sin sends you to hell. The church projects that. I don't know how that is, but the problem is you're born in sin. Right. Short of understanding who Jesus is, who he was, what he did, died, resurrected, and ascended to the Father, and your belief in this, that is what transforms you. So why is there this singling out, let's say, of sexuality sin? Why are we singling it out? And why is the church projecting that a particular sin sends you to hell when not knowing Jesus sends you to hell?
It's a big question. Well, the wages of sin is death. And so sin does incur judgment from God. I think a part of the problem is that the way we read the scriptures is that we sometimes accuse people who are experiencing temptation of being actively sinful. So what I mean is that in 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 10, it says, "Do not be deceived, neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor men who practice homosexuality will inherit the kingdom of God." Notice how often we leave out practice.
Oh, hey.
We say homosexuals, which implies just your experience of the temptation warrants you hell. When it's like, but Jesus was tempted in every respect, yet without sin. And so it is possible that someone can experience temptation, and yet at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that that temptation warrants them hell. If anything, the temptation is a signpost that their nature, that there's a sinful nature, a flesh at work that needs to be renewed and needs to be put to death. And so I think it's bad Bible reading. Yeah. But I think also the kind of talking about sexuality all the time. We talked about this earlier, which is I think it's easy to bully minority groups. Okay. And so sexuality, or those who experience gay sexuality, have always been the minority group on the playground. And so they are the ones that are bullied. They are the ones that are talked about most. They are the ones that are spoken against most. Because if we speak against heterosexual perverted ways of expressing sexuality, now we're indicting the pastor and the deacons and the people in the church. So we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the groups that are experiencing sexuality and expressing themselves in ways that we don't, because that is a kind of self-righteousness. But also at the same time, we have to acknowledge the fact that the church is often, in our discipleship and evangelistic efforts, we are often responding to what the culture talks about most. And so if the culture is talking about gay identity and trans rights and all these things a lot, then the church naturally will discuss it a lot. And so I think it's a really complicated situation that we're in anytime we venture into a conversation about sex.
Okay, so take a minute and talk about this issue in a way that, let's just say, the church was uncomfortable talking about, or they shouldn't have been, but they were. What do we need to say on this program that hasn't been said? And I circle back to even something you said earlier. You said There wasn't a word that I could even describe myself. If I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old in 2020, 2021, 2022, there might be a word that I might have been able to label myself with, but you didn't even have a word in 1990, you know, to label yourself. What do we as believers in Jesus and what that is need to say that hasn't been said? How do we help this situation?
I think what we need to do is read the scriptures, 2, listen to people, 3, pray for wisdom. It is so much easier to go out and try to figure this thing out by yourself. But we legitimately need the Spirit of the living God. And also know that this isn't strange. What's happening in Genesis 3, Eve is in the garden minding her sanctified business. And the serpent steps up and says, hey, did God really say you shall not eat from the fruit of the tree? And she looks at the thing after conversing with the devil, and she says, oh, that looks good for food. Oh, that's a delight to the eye. Oh, that's desired to make one wise. She has an affection for a created thing. She has a temptation to take apart or to engage with something that God told her not to. Mm-hmm. And so what is happening in the culture is what has always been happening, is that we have passions at war within us that are waging war against our souls. And so I think having that framework to know this isn't a random thing, nor is it something that you're also divorced from. Yeah. You have passions too, gay or straight. How many people do we know that are yet and still married and still tempted to be with someone that they're not married to? That is a passion that God calls us to put to death. And so, I don't know, man. We need help.
Yeah.
At TBN, our mission is to use every available means to reach as many individuals and families as possible with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for helping make the gospel of grace go around the world.
Without you, we couldn't do it. God bless you.